Good morning, colleagues. In case you have not seen this face anywhere, I'm Tom Jackson, your president. I should tell you, I'm walking out of a grocery store, and I'm just minding my own business, and I look up and I see this picture in a newspaper container, and it looks very much like me. And I'm walking, I stop, I look, I go, oh, well, I say something I can't repeat, but I say, oh. Then I look around to see who's looking at me, and then I keep walking back to my car. I can really understand why we like to hide as presidents. Speaking of presidents, I'm not really sure why someone would want to be a university president, but I think as I go through some of my remarks, you'll see the influence that we have, not only as a university president, but also as an educator, which is this room, everyone in this room. So before I get into some of my remarks, and I'm starting with the story about Grandma, I want to at least acknowledge a few individuals that have been bold enough to take on a role of president. And so in this room right now is President and Mrs. McCrone, and President and Mrs. Richmond. I also want to acknowledge my predecessor, President Rossbacher, and her husband Dallas, because what they've been is nothing but generous for their time and their insights over the last few months. When I was appointed, or shortly thereafter, they were incredible in sharing information and helping me in my transition. So if you'd give them a kind set of applause as well. There's one more person I'd like to acknowledge, and that's the president of the College of the Redwoods. That's Dr. Keith Flamer. If you'll please stand. I look forward to working with Dr. Flamer. I don't know if you know this, but he and I have met more than a few times. And without question, I look forward to not only our growing friendship, but our collaboration between the two institutions of the North Coast. So, Dr. Flamer, pleasure to have you here, and I look forward to working with you. So let's talk about Grandma. Who has a grandma? Most likely all of us. Grandmas have this way of telling stories, and there's a story that I'm not going to share about her, but I'm going to tell you or share with you a little bit about her dream. Now, she was born in 1908. During an interesting time, lost her husband fairly young, my father's father, when he was only 4 years old. That's not the story, though. She had this dream that went somewhere along the line that she wanted her children, and she had 3 children, her oldest daughter, her middle son, and her youngest son, who was my father, to finish their high school degrees. Why was that important to her? Because all she could do in the community that she was in as a woman of color was to finish the 8th grade. Think about what I just said just 2 generations ago. She could only finish the 8th grade by law in the state that she happened to be. So her goal was to have her children finish high school. And ultimately, all 3 of them did, never realizing that someone along the way, their children would finish college. Because the narrative wasn't about college, the narrative was just finishing high school. Now, interestingly in all of this, she also collected books. Books that she wasn't allowed to read, but she collected anyway because she would work as a food service worker in the local school. That was her job. And so in this dream, she said, one day I will have children that can read any of these books that I can't read today. So she kept them in hopes that they would read them. And the truth is, I have those books. I haven't read them. But maybe one day I will when I reach that status of these former presidents in retirement. My point in that, though, is they're old and they're dusty, but they're filled with amazing information. But that's not the point either. It's that they represent learning and a dream that you happen to have, which in part is what I'm talking about with this slide right here. Because in this slide, I'm referring to the simplicity of what our parents want in their sons and daughters when they come to this university. Who's a parent? As a parent, remember those moments when we first had our brand new baby boy or girl. We held them in our hands, and we had these aspirations. Remember those? We hoped that, well, first of all, we counted, all right? We counted fingers and toes and eyes and all those other things. And then we hoped that they would have a life that may be better than ours, that they would someday grow up and find work, find a life's partner, be educated, find a life's partner, find work, and one day do so well that they could take care of us when the role was reversed. Is this all fair to say? Honestly, it is. And I'm still hoping for my 2 children, you should know that, just like all of us here. And so those dreams are very much contained in the parents that are dropping off their sons and daughters today. I see it in their eyes over the weekend. I've seen it in their eyes over the weekend and past weekends, that hope, those dreams, that this is the place that will inspire and guide their sons and daughters into something very significant and something great. So when I'm talking about dreams and student learning, and I'm getting ahead of my clicker in just a moment, but when I'm talking about dreams, I'm really talking about that connecting point between learning, the foundation of our work, and the activity that we do as colleagues, because it is important. When I think about student learning, I think about how different it is today than when I went through college, or many of you. It wasn't about the rote memory or finishing a project it's more now about the team part of what it is that we do and the collaboration, the collegiality of the work that we do. When I think about the foundation of our work in that dream narrative of what our parents hope their sons and daughters will get, as well as my grandma, I also see that collegiality, the collegiality between a professor and a student, the guiding of our students, the idea generation within our students and our faculty, and just the simplicity of inspiring the next generation to do something great as we've been inspired to do today. No one in my past would ever say, 1, I would have finished college, or 2, I would stand before you as a university president. Think about what I just said there, because the things we do at certainly 18 and 19 define us, but there's so much road ahead of us that very few would say this person's going to do something amazing, and all the hurdles in front of us may change that very rapidly. And we have those same students now, and to expect perfection is a very high standard for all of us to expect, particularly for those coming through the door. So I say that in part to recognize the dream is fluid. The dream doesn't have to be perfect, because there's an evolution that will create this outcome for our students that are really measurable through time. I skipped what I was going to talk about, so I'm going to ask Dalton to go back a couple of slides so I can go over the outline very quickly. Over the next 45 more minutes, and yes, it'll be 45 minutes, so buckle in, grab your Snickers, and do a few other things. We're going to talk about what the state universities are and represent, some of my first impressions, some accomplishments and trends, and then we'll wrap up with some presidential themes and what we may do moving forward. So I'm jumping ahead to the impact of our work, and I'm going to ask you to think of something. Pause for a moment, and if you would kindly think of a professor or a staff member that had great influence with you when you were a college student. Think about that for just a moment. Who, as a college professor or as a staff member at your alma mater or at this school or in your high school, had this great influence with you? Someone's coming to mind. I can see it in your heads, even with the lights on me. Some of you are nodding your heads. I'm asking you at the end of this day, try and write a note. If they're still on this earth, write a note and send it to them. Let them know the impact that you have had, that they have had on you as a person. Let them know what it is that you're doing today so that they can share in your moment and your joy. Just like a student may one day do the same for you, here's that opportunity for you to do the same and really show the impact of our work and the impact of their work and how that influenced you to create this career that you happen to be in today, which we'll talk about as we go on. So state universities, what are they? Think about it this way. I'm a graduate of a state university. Who else in this room graduated from a state university? Looks like, look around for just a moment, if you can see, nearly, I would say maybe 8 out of 10, give or take. State universities represent quite a lot of things in society. Now, we call them state universities, but they're more than that. When we think about the CSU, the California State University System, which is a state university system, we have these ideas of what that may mean. But the truth is, we resemble the CSU on many levels, but we are the opposite of CSUs in many, many others. And when we analyze what I just said just a little further, you'll see what I mean. We're a university that is primarily residential today, and most of the CSUs are the opposite, commuter, busting at the seams. We're a state university like other state universities throughout the United States that have to actively recruit for students, actively recruit for students. We can't just wait here and say, doors are open, we're waiting, come, here we are, Humboldt, come get us. We just cannot do that where we are and who we are as a university, like some of the other state universities. We're not impacted in that way. We represent opportunity and economic development. So the individuals in this room who raised their hands, and all of us working here today, aside from that, are giving our citizenry this wonderful opportunity to earn a college degree, just like many of us have, particularly those of us that are first in their families to do that. That's one of the greatest strengths of being a state university. We also are a place where our public wants to know what it is we're doing, and in partnership with that public, we create this amazing synergy that guides a community in a very significant way. But along the way, we have this obligation, and we have to provide the understanding for our community and our citizens, our value, the importance of what it is that we are doing. What I mean by that is to stand here and say we're here, we have influence, we make money, we give money, we're good, isn't enough in the public sector. As a public sector institution, we always, every day, have to share with our community why we exist and the value of higher education. In doing so, we inspire, again, another generation of college students who want to come and earn a college degree. So what do state universities tend to look like? What do state universities tend to look like? And don't get caught up in these numbers, because they may change a little here or there, and this may be about a year or two ago, but they generally have colleges of education, colleges of business, health professions, which we'll see we're adding with nursing, not a college, but more health professions, and they tend to be predominantly female. That's what a state university typically is today. Do you see something familiar in that general narrative up above and who we are as Humboldt? There are some similarities. Actually, there are many when you get down into many of the other categories. So state universities are about opportunity. I bring up statewide because the state universities, and I want you to see in part that we're more alike than we're not as other state universities, because we are in this place that is uniquely different in a way. Uniquely different as a time, we're not uniquely different as a state university, as a people. So I'm going to shift for just a moment into what it means to be a person that with a degree from a state university or from any university, guiding the hopes and dreams of grandmas all out there today. The next slide is a video.
If the world was just 100 people, this is what it would look like. 50 would be female, and 50 would be male. 25 of us would be 0 to 14. 66 would be 15 to 64, and 9 would be 65 and older. When it comes to geography, 60 would be from Asia, 16 would be from Africa, 10 would be from Europe, 9 would be from Latin America and the Caribbean, and 5 would be from North America. When it comes to religion, 31 would be Christian, 23 would be Muslim, 16 would not be religious or not identify with any religion, 15 would be Hindu, 7 would be Buddhist, and 8 would believe in other religions. And when it comes to our first language, 12 would speak Chinese, 6 would speak Spanish, 5 would speak English, 4 would speak Hindi, 3 would speak Arabic, 3 would speak Bengali, 3 would speak Portuguese, 2 would speak Russian, 2 would speak Japanese, and 60 would speak other languages. And when it comes to literacy, 86 would be able to read and write, 14 would not. And when it comes to education, only 7 would have a college degree. 78 would have a place to shelter themselves from the cold and the rain. 22 would not. 91 would have access to safe drinking water. 9 would not. 11 would be undernourished, 1 would have HIV, and 1 would have tuberculosis. And this shocked me. 11 people would live on less than $1.90 per day. 82 of us would have electricity. 18 would not. Only 65 of us would have cell phones, and only 47 of us would have access to the internet. There's 3 huge lessons that I learned from all of this. The first one is that it makes me appreciate diversity. How boring would it be to live in a world where everyone was just like us? Imagine if everyone in your life talked like you, thought like you, walked like you. The world would be a boring place. There'd be no new cultures to explore, no new languages to learn, no new adventures to be had. The second thing I learned is it makes me more grateful for what I have. When we see the disparity in the numbers, we recognize how fortunate we truly are. And the third thing, we get activated and engaged and realize how much work there still is to do in the world. We all have so many opportunities for service, to make a difference in the lives of others, to heal people's physical and mental challenges, to let go of our apathy and be enthusiastic about serving and helping and making an impact on humanity. As Muhammad Ali said, service to others is the rent we pay for our room here on earth.
Who has seen 100 people kind of before? Quick show of hands. A few. It kind of puts into perspective how uniquely privileged we are as a society, particularly an educated society, those of us who work in an academic institution. What were some of your takeaways? I'm not asking you to literally throw these out at me. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, what were some of your takeaways? Just pause again for a moment and think about what you just heard, and what of all those numbers and data points that were shared with you, what will you remember? And I think about those that have a roof over their head, those that have clean water, but also the one that impacts us all. That if we use our simple mathematics, if there are 100 people on this earth, 7 with a college degree, that represents the top 7%. And so those with a college degree and those coming through this door are trying to join the top 7%. Which is an amazing number because we already know what that means in our society. The value of education on healthcare, income, homes, quality of life, longevity of life, all those items. So I'm going to talk about impressions. I've been here 2.5 months. Yes, 2.5 months. And there was about a month before that that you do a lot of prep work through the selection process, so you're just sucking in all this information to one, sell yourself and the university, also to connect with different individuals. And some of the things I've noticed are coming up fairly quickly. The first is we have to take every chance to tell the HSU story and get our name out there. Now I have a few talking points underneath this one, 4 to be exact, and it's the one I'll spend the most time on. When I talk about every chance to tell the HSU story, hear me very carefully. We are way too hard on ourselves and our community. Way too hard. This is a wonderful community, wonderful people. All of you are good people. We beat ourselves up for no reason sometimes. And so I say that as the new guy coming in, that let's have a little more fun with one another and recognize that this is good. There's a good, and that telling the good will help us in the long run. Number 2 on that point is that with social media as it is today, every less than positive item we say about ourselves becomes part of the narrative. Think of it this way. If I told my wife 25 years ago that I'm going to be 30 pounds heavier, what do you think she'd do? Now, I had 2 dogs and a horse at that time. That already was a problem for her. Yeah. And so if to factor in 30 more pounds, I'm not sure she would have crossed over that line with me. But imagine me saying that every single day, every hour of that day, over and over and over and over again. I'm pretty sure she would have said, I'm done with you. Keep your dogs, keep your horse, I'm going somewhere else. And sometimes that's what we do with some of that narrative. And I say that in jest, but I also say it as an observation. Third point I wanted to make, it isn't about the things that we don't have things that we need to work on, because we certainly do. I'm just asking us to look at our campus and community and work together in building a better campus and community together. It's not just about the university president, it's about all of us working as a team. And the third, in getting our story out there, is we have to sell the positivity, the good things about this university. Every day there's 1,000 amazing things happening on this campus. We can easily focus on 3, 4, 5, 6 of them that we don't like, but it's the 1,000 amazing ones that I want us to talk about, creating space for our community to better understand us as a university and the value of higher education. The second item up there, and I'll go a little quicker after this, is looking for new ways to raise money. The good messaging that we have, and it's growing every single day, will lead to donors wanting to revisit and reconnect to this university. It's on us as a university to give them reasons to believe in this university and to believe in you as faculty and me as a university president. And then on the international presence side, I've noticed that we are more connected than we give ourselves credit for. Now, we may not have this direct passageway between Humboldt County and other parts of the world, but this community is connected to the world. Our businesses are connected through their industries to the world, and our students are coming in here connected to other people throughout the world, and it's on us to amplify that in ways that we haven't been able to do that yet. On the next slide is a picture of me with children. It's the elementary ed teacher in all of us. And that picture is really about talking about the value of our business, the things that we do within a university. They couldn't care less that I may be a university president. In their narrative, I'm just some adult, some dad, some person that's sitting down with them, and they're going to remember me for having fun with them. Now, in this particular instance, I'm hoping that they remember that I was a person of color who was nice to them so they wouldn't be afraid of people of color. It's as simple as that sometimes. But I also want them to know that I helped them with their math, and I made it fun for that particular moment. And so in that little scenario, I was selling the value of higher education and selling a university in hopes that one day when they grow up a little older, they realize that, wait, maybe I can go to college and be a teacher or a professor. Also on that slide, you see a big number. And that number is an unconfirmed number, so please don't hold me to it later. But it is, in rough numbers, our economic impact as a university, $567 million annually. Now that's broken down between alumni, which is somewhere above $360 million across the state, the economic impact, and on campus a little more than $200 million. So the engine of this university contributes greatly not only to the North Coast, but also our state. And in the coming weeks, we'll release that information for all to see once we've been able to identify the numbers a little better and make sure they're actually as factual as they seem. But that speaks to a growing number and the strength of this university and its influence throughout the region, and how reliant and interconnected we are as a community and as a university. Which brings me to the next slide, how connected we are to our communities. Now on the far right, it says HSU and Arcata go together, and there's no question we're in this community, and as Arcata goes, we go, and as we go, Arcata goes. But there are certainly different voices out there that we also have to listen to. Listening to the voices of Petrolia is a little different than listening to them as Arcadians, or listening to Crescent City, and what they want from this university is sometimes a little different than Eureka. I'll talk a little bit more about Eureka, I think, in a coming slide, but I share this in part because between the communities around us, including the tribes, they all share in the success of this university and all have hopes and aspirations for this university in ways that we will connect and guide this next generation of workforce and industry. It's more than just the students that come through the door. It's the idea of the citizenry and the engine that we represent that guides everything from Petrolia to Crescent City and places beyond. On the left side of that is the importance of athletics. Athletics represents more than just 400 student athletes coming through the door. When we think about athletics, we sometimes think that it's a group of individuals that all have scholarships, full scholarships, and that couldn't be further than from the truth. What actually occurs is you may have a scholarship that then gets shared between 1, 2, 3, or 4 athletes or more, or you don't have any scholarship. You're here simply because you want to do the sport. It is what got you back to college. Now, these aren't athletes that are majoring in rowing or majoring in basketball. These are athletes majoring in biology, chemistry, soon to be nursing, business, teaching, education, So these are our scholars that are participating in an activity, but inside your classrooms, learning your trade and your craft, listening and studying from each of you. That's what makes it so important, because also athletics is our best recruiting mechanism. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But for every student athlete that comes to this university, they most likely will graduate, and they'll bring more friends than any other collective group, than any other group that we invite to come to this university. How many in this room, how many people in this room, if you'd raise your hands, participated in a sport, whether it was club sports, rec sports, or competitive NCAA sports as a student in college? Take a look around, a pretty good number. And we all have stories to tell in that regard too. I've also noticed, first impression, that this campus has a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I could walk in on any particular Friday and realize the place is hollow. Not because it's hollow per se, because people are just enjoying life in this county. I mean, they've disappeared. I feel like I'm the only one working some days. I'm there and I'm looking around. Where did everyone go? Oh, they're out kayaking. Where? It doesn't matter. They're gone kayaking. Or hiking, or climbing, or shopping, or something. I'm just Netflixing. But they're out doing something really kind of fun. And this community, without question, is really into doing other things when they're not working in this craft called higher education, and I call that very commendable. One of my goals is actually to learn to fly fish, and so if there's a fly fisherman in the group who needs a remedial student, that would be me. That would be me. Also, history matters, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. And then lastly is a slide about our faculty at their best. I've noticed very quickly through the stories that I hear just by walking around and meeting different individuals or different eras of individuals in the community that our faculty love their work and greatly, greatly enjoy working with students. That would be a cultural trait of Humboldt. Lastly, I've noticed that times are changing and that the brain booth and how we learn may be at the tip of our iceberg when it comes to developing ourselves as a university. We have this opportunity that we're acting upon to recreate how our students learn and to cultivate that in such a way that not only can a student come to this university, but rapidly finish this university using different methods of learning. As we explore those ways, I think it will be very transformative, not only for our state, but also the rest of the United States, because we're in the place where we're a little more nimble as a university and can experiment with these things in ways that others may not. So I encourage us to do that because it's clear to me we're acting upon that right now. So let's switch to some accomplishments that I've picked up over the last few months. And these accomplishments are certainly not all-inclusive. They're just a snippet of some of the things that have happened in the recent last year. Another way to look at that is, despite all the news that we may read about, there are some amazing things happening on this campus. And the first I'd like to talk about is the success of some of our student athletes. A 3.1 GPA as a group is a very, very strong GPA, and it's higher than the average student who's not participating in athletics. I've also noticed on this slide the 4,055 community service hours. Now, I've heard on more than one occasion that we're not active enough in the community, and it's hard for me to understand how do we get to that point? How did we get to that point in such a way that someone feels strongly enough to share that to me? And then I look at this number and realize that we are very much doing things in the community. Our students are volunteering, our faculty, our staff are volunteering. Another way to look at this from my lens is we're in the community, we're neighbors in the community. Your neighbor is a university official, a faculty member, a staff member. We're in the plaza, we're in Eureka at Old Town Eureka. And so we're there. We're present. We just may not be representing. You see the subtle difference. And so I hear that folks say we as a university need to be there and doing more things with and for the community, and they may be referring to the simplicity of the presidency, but the presidency is just one person, and I'm surrounded by 1,500 other, actually 8,000 when you factor in the faculty, staff, students, not to mention the 75,000 alums. We're all out there. I'm asking us to represent. This is a great accomplishment for athletics. So thank you, athletics. Is Coach Miggs in here? Well, I'm going to talk about her anyway then. So feel free to share this. Leading a team, as some of us know, is very, very challenging. And there are dynamics and processes within running a team that are subtly different than managing a classroom. Coach Miggs has positively influenced thousands of students and people throughout the world. And her influence in women's rights and athletics is really unparalleled. And so she's retiring this year, as many of you know. I'm asking you to give her a nice round of applause for all she's done. Now, on these slides, you have to be quick readers, and so I'm moving on to the next one fairly rapidly. Right up front is the Trinity Annex. Today we will release a news release about what we're going to do in renovating the Trinity Annex, the old hospital, into a child development center. I also need to acknowledge St. Joseph Health with their generous support for our nursing program, as much and as well as President Flamer and the College of the Redwoods for their willing to collaborate with us on this important degree, which we will start fall of 2020. Last year was a record year when it came to new funding. More than $36 million, I think the number's even higher than that at the end, was generated by the creative writing skills of our faculty. I encourage you to continue to do that, because while we may not be a research university, there's nothing stopping us from being the most prolific grant writing university on the planet. And so keep it up, and let's just show them what we're made of when it comes to bringing in external dollars. So kudos to all the faculty. Please stand. For those individuals that took the time to write for a grant, not whether you got it or not, because that's part of the goal. To write is the first step. To write for a grant or any level of external funding, please stand so we can acknowledge you. Thank you. On the next slide, I want to mention counseling. This is a good and a less than good if you think about it. When someone needs counseling, today it's not a bad, it's a good. Someone is reaching out for help, assistance, guidance, or just mentorship. There's so many reasons why someone would find the counseling center. But a few years ago, there's a data point across the United States that said if a student was in crisis, and they found the counseling center through our deliverance, walking them to the center, literally walking them to the center, or getting them there somehow, they had a better than 80% chance of being returned the next semester. We retained them the next semester at 80%. Think about what I just said. A student in crisis who returns the following semester because of the intervention we had through counseling. That's the strength of counseling on a university. All of us get to see students at various stages of their developmental process. Some of them are definitely in crisis. When you see that, getting them to that particular location, the counseling center, will not only help save a student, it will help keep them in school and thriving in a positive way. So to the counseling center, for all that you've done, and for keeping those students in school and managing that dynamic of more coming through the door, nicely done. Thank you for stepping up. Almost lastly on this section is the 3rd Street space in Eureka. Now we might remember that as something else, but I'm calling this out as an amazingly good change of events. 3rd Street and Eureka is a fantastic opportunity for Humboldt. Eureka's on the move, folks. It's on the move. Wandering through Eureka, forget about 101. That's just a piece of Eureka. We all know that. We don't need to talk about that. But let's talk about the other amazing things that are going on in there. And that is Old Town, downtown, the youth, the families, the energy, the arts. There's a lot happening in Eureka, and they are really going to go somewhere. And we're there with them to go with them when they get there. And it's starting with the Small Business Center, which is on 3rd Street. Imagine the workforce, the things, the people that we will talk to, and the new generation of entrepreneurs that we will engage just through our presence. So I see that as an amazing good. And if you haven't been to Eureka in a while, wander in and enjoy Friday night and see what is really happening. There's an electric vibe that is happening there that we as a university are part of. You can clap for Eureka. Is Officer Altek here? Okay, well, I'll talk about him anyway. Again, you may have did this last year, but I want to bring it up one more time. Earlier this year, at the Chancellor's office in Long Beach, UPD Officer Louis Altek was recognized for heroism with the prestigious Medal of Valor. He was shot neutralizing a threat here in Arcata. As faculty and staff, we certainly are faced with many, many challenges, but police officers, as we know, are who we as individuals greatly rely upon in our greatest times of need, bring that to a completely different level. So for Officer Altek, who's not here, let's give him a nice round of applause. So I'm going to talk about some interesting trends as we begin to wrap up. How long have I been? Okay, we're going along way too slow. That's on me. This next slide, President Macron, do you recognize this person? Remember these moments. If you could read the highlighted areas, read them with me for just a moment. I took this out of the book, The 100-Year History of Humboldt State University, and it's the era of President Macron. I'm going to read some of what is there for those that may be in the back. From the highlighted area, it says, the school looked to resolve shrinking budgets, declining enrollment, and the remnant social and political turmoil from the late 60s. We're still doing that, I guess. The 60s just won't leave, will it? You know, there are other people that were born later that are just waiting for their turn, so. The next one is, he wanted to create a Humboldt, an educational experience equivalent to that of a small liberal arts college. The next highlighted point says, and my notes are kind of hard to read, in an age of limited growth and a limited pool of college-age people, he urged the faculty to work toward quality of education rather than quantity. Number 4, on the right-hand side, it says, divide the labor when assigning faculty to research, teaching, advising, or governance. Number 5 said, improve a sense of community within the campus and between the campus and the North Coast community. And lastly, it said, in the decades, it was more like the ugly stepsister. 2 decades of steady growth came to a halt in '74 as enrollment declined a little bit. Now, if we were to take out President Macron's picture and put mine in there, it would be about 80% accurate, wouldn't you say? I have this opportunity to hear stories out there just like all of you. And one of the best I hear is, oh, that's never happened at Humboldt before. And then I think about some of the things I've read and some of the influences of the cycles that we happen to be in. And we certainly are in one of those cycles right now. The ebb and flow of a university since 1913, there are ups, there are downs, there's everything in between. And just because one may be down doesn't mean everything is down or everything is up when everything is up. This is an illustration of the ebb and flow that we have as a university and how we just grind through it. That's what we do as universities that stick around, and this is certainly one that has stuck around and will continue to stick around. We will grind through those times that we happen to be in for the good or the bad. Keep that in mind because this sounds strikingly familiar. Now the next slide is a video, and you will see it may or may not relate to HSU, so have a little fun with it and think about how it might relate to the work that we are doing and the times we happen to be in.
That's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
No, well, there's nothing else left to do, is there?
Here we are. How many of you feel like you're stuck on an escalator? Actually, let me put it this way. Some of us look at you and see you're stuck on an escalator and just say, take the step, will you? And that's kind of where we are at. We're in a place where we get to define who we are as a university. When you think about Humboldt State, what comes to mind? And again, you don't have to shout out thoughts or ideas. I'm going to name a couple. But when you think of Humboldt State, if you were out there shopping at Safeway or Wildberries and someone came to you and said, well, what's Humboldt about? What would you say and what would they think? And some of the natural reoccurring themes tend to be around our sciences, of course, oceanography. I've heard forestry mentioned by every forester I've met. It seems like everyone in the community is a forester of something. They are certainly organized, let's put it that way. We're also very artsy, and we're in a great location. But what else? What else would you say about this university? And that is where we are at when we're talking about how we want to market ourselves. Because we're in the position where we get to define who we are to a new generation of students that aren't necessarily guided by the old methodologies of marketing. I can put a sign up, a billboard, but that's not going to reach a student. That's not how we connect to those students. And we know that. We know that as faculty and staff in this room. That we don't do that to our students. They could run into a billboard and it wouldn't stick to them in that way. So up here is a slide about Western Oregon. And they are doing this activity with a global agenda. And they do that enough times, they will be referred to or seen as a global community or a global campus. That doesn't necessarily make them good or any of those other things, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about marketing and doing things enough time where the community believes that that's who you are. And we become that through that effort. And that's where I also bleed into the happy on that side. That actually is a package from the Philippines. There are some misspellings, but don't get caught up into that. And they also say down at the bottom, chicken adobo flavor. Now, we're accustomed to different flavors here in the United States. Now, think about this, though. In the 1950s and 60s, there were really only two types of peanuts you can get, salted and unsalted, right? And then we got roasted, which improved upon that. And now we have every flavor you can imagine between barbecue, jalapeno flavor, ranch flavor, you name it. What they're essentially doing is rebranding themselves in a way to become more attractive to more people, just like a university needs to do, because chicken adobo is the most popular dish in the Philippines, no different than barbecue on our peanuts. But if we were to apply that same process to a university, I'm certainly not suggesting we brand ourselves as the barbecue capital of Humboldt County. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we have a chance to rebrand ourselves as the type of university that we want to be, that will be attractive to the students that we are attracting or want to attract. And that's where we are and have to be at this particular moment, evolving as a campus to attract this next generation of students that are just waiting to hear from us. Also on this topic is the importance of our community helping selling this university, talking about the collective good of this university, which I mentioned before. In one of our brochures, we talk about, actually it's our strategic plan, we talk about being a college of choice. And I ask us to broaden that a little bit, to become a college of innovation. You'll hear me say that multiple times throughout this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if it finds its way into our next strategic plan. That we not get caught up on the college of choice, but we get caught up on how innovative we can be, how creative we can be, how bold, and how many ideas we can generate. I think that honestly is one of our greatest strengths of a university, our ability to be nimble and to be creative and innovative. For every person in this room, if I say, just take an innovative approach, You'll sit down with somebody else, collaborate, and boom, something unique will come out of that we could use to strengthen this university and our community in an amazing way. I also think as we market ourselves, we continue to look upward and outward. To put it a slightly different way, we stand in a place where we can not only hear the whisper of the redwoods, but also the roar of the Pacific. And in hearing and seeing those two items, we also can dream about a campus that we want in front of us in the future. And that, I believe, starts with innovation and looking upward and outward beyond where we are today, not necessarily stuck on the escalator where we might be at different points throughout the day. Now, where are we at in this presentation? We're almost done. I think we're at the presidential themes, which I'll go through fairly quickly, and then things that we move forward. Are you still with me? I should tell you. All right. Yeah, I went off script. Uh-oh. So I get these notes. I show up, I'm walking somewhere, and someone might say, "You're the new president." Yeah. We are so glad you're here. We wish you well. Our thoughts are with you. And I'm thinking, what did I just get into? And this is consistent. This is just not one person. This is, probably some of you have done that, and I'm not calling you out on it either. There are things that I've talked about in the community, and I'm going to go through many of them fairly rapidly. The student experience, community relations, campus culture, expenditures to funding, undergraduate research, and the global online education. Let's talk about the student experience fairly quickly. Many of you heard me say that in the simplest of terms, it is my hope that we provide our students a positive, meaningful educational experience. 4 words: positive, meaningful, educational experience. Positive, meaningful educational experience. We can find ways, all of us in this room, to do that for our students. Put a different way, I ask us to be old school, to be elbow to elbow with our students in such a way that they are connected to us. We're mentoring them, we're guiding them, we're coaching them, we're having fun with them, we're hearing their stories, they're hearing our stories, all those different things. Old school. That's our strength also as a university. Now, when we talk about the student experience, first on my list is retention. We have to be as good as we can be to keep the students that are good enough to walk through this door. Let's put it this way. If a student can find their way to this university, go through the maze as an application process, get here with the scores or not the scores that they happen to have, we have to be good enough to keep them despite themselves. I look at it subtly different. We're not in the business of weeding out students, because the one we weed out might be the one that was supposed to be the late bloomer and the one that would discover the cure for AIDS. Think about that for just a moment. A student, as we all know, they grow at different points in time of their lifespan. And imagine that we were all judged here in this room by how good we were at 18 or 19. Yeah. Yeah, we won't go there. Well, our students are in that same category right now, and some will take a little longer to get to where they need to go. And imagine the one that we removed from this university that would have found themselves at age 24 or 5 and become the next researcher that created the 3rd generation of the microgrid. But we lost them because we weeded them out as a freshman. That's just how connected I think we are, and why we as a university have to be really good at retaining students who are good enough to get to Humboldt State. Related to that is housing and food. Yes, I know we have a very strong housing challenge, not only on campus, but also in the community. I'm a new person, obviously, to the community, and one of the things I noticed fairly early on were the costs of housing. The way I describe it here is, if I were to give all of you a wonderful new job, but you'd have to move to San Francisco, what would you say or do? And what would be your biggest concern? Housing, the cost of living in San Francisco, right? For most of you. And for our students, they may be coming from different locations, but that doesn't mean their family have the zeros behind their income that even some of us may have. We have students that the only way they can find an apartment on campus is to pay an application fee just to get the application in and then to view the property. Think about what you just heard me say again. If you paid $50 for the opportunity to go look at a place that you may or may not select, and then you had to do that again, that adds up fairly quickly. That's like saying I'm going to pay $50 to go into Walmart whether I shop or not, or $50 to go into Safeway or Wildberries whether I buy anything or not. We are, in essence, as a community, are doing that through application fees. We also are doing that through our deposits. Imagine a student asked to pay, or a faculty member. We have new faculty that are faced with this every single day, particularly now. Who has $500 to $1,000 they can just lay out for a deposit, along with the $1,500 to $2,000 in rent coming from where you happen to come? It's not easy for our faculty and staff either in that scenario. Or for our students who are asked to co-sign something. A parent has to drive from San Francisco or Los Angeles just to sign their house away so their son or daughter could get a home here in Humboldt County. So I think about those checks and balances that we have and just the simplicity of what we're doing within the housing systems outside of this university that are influencing us and our ability to recruit students to this university. And I'm asking us to look at that in different ways, if not change them outright. I'm also looking at dining, and I give credit to the Administrative Division and Student Affairs for finding a way to create a $3 meal for our students. You heard me correctly. They found a way to do that. Now, you might say, well, that still means a student has to find $3. Well, I have a different thought on that one. But this means a student, if not a faculty or staff member, could find a meal for $3. And it isn't about making money. It's about providing that meal, and they can have it as often as they want, in my mind. I'm also thinking about how we might coordinate some of the receptions and socials that we might have on campus where we will freely have food. The old story is students who are savvy, along with faculty and staff, know where the food is. Right? Reception over here, go get the bagels. Oh, they're having a lunch reception over here. They'll have sandwiches. Go get that. And over here, they're having the warm chicken nuggets for dinner. So if you move around campus, you can get a full meal, but you have to know where those places are. And there's no secret. We can share that information with those who are most needy because we already are providing the meal for receptions and activities. So there are coordinated things that as a campus we're thinking about doing and we'll do, maybe not as early as this semester, but with Student Affairs help a little later on in the academic year. Also on this slide is the importance of campus community, following the footsteps of athletics and engaging the community through adopting agencies or volunteer service, as well as all of us in this room doing the same. And then lastly on the slide that I want to mention are transfers. I think our collaboration and our opportunities with the College of the Redwoods, as well as Chico and Sac State, are going to be extremely strong over the coming years, and how we're able to parlay that into success stories for the North Coast is on all of our shoulders right here. There's nothing stopping us from creating amazing 2+2, 2-3, 2-4s, 3-1s, 3-2 programs that will work for Humboldt State and the community or the institution that we happen to be with. I also think we can grow our graduate programs from within. The best seller of a graduate program is an undergraduate professor talking to their student about the place they work. Think about yourselves suggesting to any student, not just the one you think is brilliant, but the one that you may not think is brilliant. That could be me. And saying, you know, you can go to grad school, and it could be here at Humboldt State. Think about Humboldt State and think about continuing your graduate education at Humboldt State. I'm asking you to do that in your own way. Let's flip the page and look at what people talk about. So when we're talking about recruiting students, these are some of the perceptions that they have about the differences between the big research universities and somewhat smaller state universities collectively. They believe, according to Complete College America, that the research university has higher academic quality, that you have more student involvement, that it is more affordable, and that you have more contact with faculty at a research institution. These are the honest perceptions of the students that we are recruiting. You see our work in front of us? These are the narratives that are out there that we actually have to modify along the way so that we can convince the students, if you really want more contact with faculty, it's at a Humboldt State. It's about that easy in a way. So branding ourselves in that way will make a big difference. Community relations, the next slide. I'm asking all of your help in representing. If you don't have a hat, shirt, button, pin, belt, whatever it may be that says Humboldt State University on it, let me know and I'll get you one. But my goal is to have everyone out there one day proudly wearing our green and gold and showing just how prominent we are as a university in our community. I mean, I'm out there and I'm trying to hide in other clothes and you still spot me. And so imagine if all of us were wearing our green and gold, what image and impression we would make throughout the community. I just want folks to see just how big and broad and collectively diverse we really are as a community. Which leads me to campus culture and diversity. I think diversity is more than just football. So this is the narrative. I'm out and about, and someone might say to me, very honestly and sincerely, it's too bad you lost football. We need more diversity. Now think about how I could take all of that. Now I know what was intended to be said and what was meant to be said, but because I'm also living off the second item, civility, I'm thinking, no, Tom, don't say it. Don't say it. Let it go, Tom. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Breathe. And then I think to myself, diversity is a lot more than just football. Football is a sport with a lot of things and dynamics happening in it. Diversity, I think, is more about ideas and our ability to communicate with one another and hear our different points of view. It certainly could be about skin color, and in that root simplicity, it is. But I call that the methodology of the 1950s and 60s, and I'd like to think that we're in the second or third or fourth generation of that conversation. I mean, I'm 59 years old right now. That's a secret. It's not on the internet or anything else like that. So, and I was just young enough to not see some of those things or truly understand some of those things that were on the TV. Most in this room, it's just history right now. And my children could care less. They're living it today, and I can say something to them, oh, Dad, that's just whatever, and then they move right on. So we've moved away from some of those things collectively with our students and our children, but it still means we have work to do. If we really want to have a conversation about diversity, it has a lot to do with civility and hearing one another and the different ideas we happen to share with one another. I also think it's about having conversations that are centered around things that are colorblind. For example, abortion. It doesn't matter whether you're African American or white, you have an opinion on it, or gun control, or water quality, or electricity and energy, or the cost of fuel in California. All of those things are not determined by the color of one's skin. We all share in that. We can gripe about that in the hallway if you want to, and it doesn't matter who we happen to be. It's a colorblind topic that actually brings us together over coffee. in a really good way. And then when we're really, really serious and think we have enough success, let's bring the blue and the red together and actually talk about those items, because those are really where the dividing lines can be sometimes. Let and allow our conservative voices to actually be heard on a campus like Humboldt without scorn, in a very civil mindset, and then we will really be honestly living a global community, I believe, as your university president. I also want us to celebrate darn near everything that we have going on. Now, that's not to say that we can't do the opposite. I mean, we can protest any displeasure we may happen to have on that particular day. And I actually ask us to maybe do that a little less, because in my mind, it's a start to a day that begins with a negative versus a positive. But we're free to do that. But in that same breath, I want us to celebrate the successes that each of you have, the new paper that you had just published in a journal. Throw a party, have some food, talk with your colleagues, those kind of things. A new movie or a video that came out, let's celebrate that. An award that our faculty or staff member may have received, or just a good day that a supervisor wants to have in his or her department. Let's throw the celebration so that we become a campus of celebration that are recognizing the good things that our community brings to the table every single day. I ask us to do that. As far as expenditures to funding, this is an interesting one for me, because sometimes I look at it and wonder, what is it that we're not accepting? And I'm trying to find different ways to articulate it. So I thought about a movie that I've watched not long ago that is one of my most favorite movies that I'll share with you. And then I'll come back and raise some other talking points about expenditures to funding. Go ahead.
Ken? Ken?
What?
Good, you're not dead. I'm trying to get in touch with you for 45 minutes.
Jesus, John, what are you doing here?
Gotta get you in the simulators. We gotta ship to land.
What?
There's been an explosion. Oxygen tanks are gone, 2 fuel cells gone, command module's shut down.
What about the crew?
Crew's fine so far, trying to keep them alive in the limb. We're gonna have to shut that down pretty soon, too. We got a lot of people working the numbers on this one, Ken. Nobody's too sure how much power we're gonna have when we hit re-entry. The command module's gonna be frozen up pretty good by then.
We see this ammeter rise over 20 at any point, power up is no good. We see it spikes, that's sayonara for the guidance computer. Our guys can't re-enter, okay?
How much power do we have to play with?
Barely enough to run this coffee pot for 9 hours. Go.
Yeah, Ken Mattingly just got here.
Copy. He's here.
They've been losing heat since the accident. They're gonna start getting a lot of water condensation on the control panels.
Ken, glad you're here. You know what's going on?
John's brought me up to speed. What do we have left in the batteries?
You don't really know.
We gotta get started on some shortcuts for power up.
Yeah, you know how short?
Well, it's all in the sequencing, John. If we can skip whatever we don't absolutely need and turn things on in the right order, maybe.
I agree.
You start on a procedure?
Well, the engineers have tried, but I mean, it's your ship. We gotta get you in there.
Okay. Here's the order of what I want to do. I want to power up guidance, ECS, communications, warm up the pyros for the parachutes and the command module thrusters.
The thrusters are gonna put you over budget on amps, Ken.
Well, they've been sitting at 200 below for 4 days, John. They gotta be heated.
Fine, then trade off the parachutes. Something.
Well, if the chutes don't open, what's the point?
Ken, you're telling me what you need. I'm telling you what we have to work with at this point. I'm not making this stuff up.
They're gonna need all these systems, John.
We do not have the power, Ken.
We just don't have it.
Okay, I'm gonna go back and reorganize the sequencing again and find more power. Look, I know this sequence works, John.
The sequence looks good. We're just over budget on the amperage.
By how much?
3 or 4 amps.
God damn it, John, is it 3 or 4?
4.
4!
4 more amps. We know they have some power left in the LEM batteries, right?
Yeah.
We have an umbilical that provides power from the command module to the LEM.
Right, it's backup for the LEM power supply.
I'm listening.
So, reverse it. Reverse the flow and see if we can draw these 4 amps from the LEM batteries before we cut it loose. Why can't we do that?
We don't have a procedure for that, do we?
You're gonna lose a lot in the transfer, Ken.
Yeah, but all we're talking about here is 4 amps. IMU is up.
How am I reading?
Fine so far.
Say again.
You're under the limit. Keep going.
Okay. Floodlights to fixed.
Okay. Bring up the guidance.
Here we go. CMC attitude IMU.
Source.
CMC mode. Auto. On the computer.
Ken,
Go ahead.
is your computer on now?
Up and running. How do we look? John?
I think we got it, buddy.
So for $2.99, you can buy that on YouTube. Or Google Play or any of those others. Now that you all want to see the full movie again, it's not available on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I know, because I've tried. And so, folks, we have a spending problem that we have to get under control. And the simple way that I could describe this is if we made $50,000 a year for the last 10 years, we believe that we will make $50,000 for the next 10 years. But all of a sudden, we are now making $40,000 a year. But we didn't make any corrections. We're still spending like we are making $50,000. And we're still spending like we've made $50,000. And unlike a household where you just build up debt, a university does not have that ability to do that. There's no American Express that I can just charge until it gets so big and things correct themselves. So what is happening on our university with the goodness of all of you and the work that you've done over the last years trying to correct our spending to be in alignment with the resources that we have coming in. When we get that point in balance, then and only then will we have the cash flow that we need to actually really truly put into all of the innovative things that we so much want to do these days. So it's a process, and it's a process that requires all of us to commit to, because if we do that, then we'll get out of it a little bit quicker. If we dig in and hoard what we have, or hold what we have, it may stretch a 3-year process into a 6 or 7-year process. And frankly, I think all of you are tired of dealing with this. I know I've only been here 2.5 months, but it's a narrative I've seen in other places, and I'm ready to get over it as well. So I'm asking your assistance in helping guide us through this, just in that same fashion in Apollo 13. If you want to see the parallels, amps and power equal money in that scenario. We only have so much for what we can do today, but it doesn't mean we can't or won't stop doing it forever. It just means we have to make the correction right now. We also look at the CSU effect, and that is in our ears. It's like saying we're good, like I said before, and we are. But we also have to recruit. We don't have 50,000 students waiting to get into this university. We have to get out there and sell ourselves in such a way, and as we do that, our revenues will grow. But every person in here is not only a part of that responsibility to recruit, you're part of that responsibility to retain students on our campus as well. Both of those will help us as a university. That brings me to faculty, teaching, and research. And there's just a couple of items I want to mention on that one before I wrap up with moving forward. Faculty development, I think, is extremely important. And I think there are strategies we could use to improve that. If you out there with your colleagues and friends have an opportunity to bring a conference or an event, seminar to this campus, or to even create one yourself, I encourage you to do that. Just say yes. So you're at the conference, let's say, and they say, we want to have a conference somewhere in California. You say, yes, we'll do it. We'll figure out the details later. And I mean this sincerely, because when you pause, and those of you who have done this before know, when you pause, that event planner moves to the next person. And someone says yes eventually, and that's where the seminar goes, right? Having been there, that's what we do. And so when you have that chance, say, yes, Humboldt's got it, we believe in it, we want to do it, we'll figure it out. What happens in return is, rather than sending one person to a seminar, we can send several people to a seminar because it's on our campus. And we're selling our university as a place that believes in faculty development. That's just one small example of something I'm asking you to do to really get our name out there. Also encourage you to write like crazy for external funding. I acknowledged those who have written in the past here earlier today. I encourage you to continue to do that, because I think that truly is one of this campus's greatest strengths. The last item up there is the undergraduate research, and I see that as the best way to rejuvenate our students, keep them in school, but also bring them into your inner circle of scholarship. When I see a faculty mentoring undergraduate student, I realize that we have a prospective faculty member in the works, or another brilliant scholar soon to graduate from this university. I encourage you to do that, because I think it's the connectivity of the work that we do. Now, the next slide talks about the base, and you saw that slide earlier, a piece that said base versus opportunity. On this slide, if you look at it, you'll see a number of the majors that are actually doing okay, fairly well. These are the big ones. The psychology is right up there with 622, give or take, and you see the other numbers. There is something missing off of this, though. What do you think it is? It's one of the first things I noticed when I saw this chart. Education. I thought we were founded as a normal school, a teacher prep school, and nowhere on here in our top programs is education, which caused me to wonder as a candidate what happened. How did we give that away to the Chicos and the Sac States and the Sonomas when it was ours? Which is a calling card for us to say, what else will we give away or not give away if we are truly deliberate about the work that we're doing? This is the marketing campaign and the enrollment campaign that we are in as universities today when we're out there hustling for students and selling the programs that we happen to have. The next slide actually shows the fastest growing programs. And on this one, I ask you to think about what also is missing, because we know that there have been other reports showcasing the emerging disciplines, academic programs that our students are interested in. It's on us actually to create those programs for the next generation of college students. Doing something exactly as we did in 1913 or 1860 certainly wouldn't be expected of us today. And so us creating academic programs that will be marketable for the next 20 years is our responsibility as well. I'll give you a tangible example when it comes to online education, which is missing a little at Humboldt State. Two universities, Campus A, Campus B. Campus A said, oh, no, we can't do speech online. How many of you agree with that? Speech is supposed to be about standing in front of people, selling your idea, shaking on the thought that what you say is not going to be endorsed by everybody else. You have to go through Speech 101 in front of people. It's a rite of passage. How dare we put it online? Campus B says, oh, we know you shouldn't put it online, but we're going to put it online. Why? Because students will take it. And when they take it, it means headcount. It means we'll grow our faculty. We'll have lots of faculty because all the students are taking speech online. And they're still learning the concepts that we want them to know, that it's the seller's responsibility to get their point across, et cetera, all those things that we learned in Speech 101. So Campus A dug in and lost students to Campus B because Campus B adjusted and evolved with online education. Is it right? No, it's not about right or wrong. It was about just evolving to what our students are capable of doing today. That's a wonderful example of whether we're going to meet that challenge of faster growing programs for the students that are out there today as Humboldt State University. Lastly on this section is global and online education. And here I have a marker that says global competencies. For me, it isn't about bringing necessarily students from other parts of the world. It's really about preparing our students to be competitive in the global marketplace. That's what I'm talking about. They are already playing video games with students all over the world. Some of them speak multiple languages. It really is so that when they graduate, just like understanding technology, they understand the dynamics in a global market, global community, so that we are proud of them as they go out into the workforce. Lastly, let's talk about moving forward, and these will go fairly quickly because I know you're getting tired. And I'm going to read them. I'm asking us over the next few years, these are critical years for all of us, for us to reintroduce our campus to our community and our region, just not Arcata, but our entire region. Show off who we are. Number 2, let's address marketing, enrollment, and retention, and new academic programs. 3, let's acknowledge that student access leads to diversity and inclusion, because a college graduate will be the next one that creates the solar conduit that supports the next energy grid, or will find a new way to purify water, or will find the cure to AIDS. It will be a college graduate. So let's provide that access that may lead us to that point. Number 4, we have to align our expenditures to our resources. 5, model ourselves as a true global community. And 6, cultivate our friends for scholarships and research. Now, more than 100 years ago, generous donors from the local community came together to help create the Humboldt State Normal School. William Preston pledged a 12-acre site. Other community members promised more than $12,000. They found temporary startup space and identified local residents to house students. That charitable support from the community, alumni, and others continues today, and it is what our founding fathers saw for us as a university. Those donors and friends are still out there, and they're all in our corner wanting us to succeed. So in closing, like many of you, I wake up every day and remember what a gift I've been given, not to be a university president, but to actually be an educator that gets to guide students, influence them, give them hope, give them ideas. I also am a person who gets to stand in front of a microphone and inspire, in one way or another, each of you to do the exact same thing so that we create this next generation of individuals that will guide us through this earth. Now, what you're going to see next is a wrap-up video that was done by Marketing and Communication. It's amazing. And so before we even show it, if you would acknowledge Marketing and Communication, because they not only put together this PowerPoint, they also put together this video, and then I'll close with just a few words at the end of the video. Humboldt is an amazing place with special people. It really, in so many ways, is about our amazing faculty who are dedicated to our students and the equally passionate staff who have committed themselves to this wonderful university. College is challenging. It is. It's part of what makes it valuable. And we know that earning a college degree will have a lasting impact on the lives of our students and their families. So my commitment is that we will do everything possible to ensure that students at Humboldt State University have a positive, meaningful educational experience.
We have such a wide variety of students that come from so many different places that they bring some really great perspectives and diversity onto campus that adds to the richness of what HSU is.
I like that our students are here to kind of explore who they are.
The students that come here are absolutely coming to Humboldt State for a different experience.
And I feel like our students here are a different kind of student than I see at some of the other institutions I've worked at before coming to Humboldt State. Our students are passionate and they're driven.
They're passionate about social justice. They're passionate about the environment. They're passionate about making the world a better place.
And that passion is contagious and inspiring.
They are literally inspiring me every day to try and keep up with their aspirations, their determination, their commitment to excellence.
Our students have big hearts and want to make the world a better place for everyone.
It's true, though.
It is true.
It's so true.
The students, the faculty, the staff, they're all in different roles and different backgrounds. Makes for diverse projects. We're always working on something new and challenging.
What I love about working at HSU is that it has the finest undergraduate program in the whole country. Full stop. And I'm super lucky to be part of it.
If I and all the people here on campus can contribute just a little bit to that, to all of these great young people going out and changing the world and making it a better place, then our day is made.
Well, I love working with the students and the new insight they bring to things that I already think and believe. And I love that challenge because I love that process of learning.
What I would say to new parents and families is be prepared for your child to be different when they come home. This place will have an incredible impact on them because Humboldt isn't a school, it's an experience.
I would say they are leaving their kids in great care with us. They're coming to an amazing university.
Take advantage of the faculty and the staff that want to support your student and encourage your student to connect with those people.
If your student can get engaged in a class that they like or a club or activity that they enjoy, they're probably going to find a sense of belonging and really like coming here. And I think there's lots of ways for them to get involved.
We're thinking about the whole student, not only your education, but your health and well-being, and knowing that you have what you need to be successful here.
We have the services here to allow your students to thrive and function and ultimately graduate from the institution.
There are many, many people on our campus that are working very, very hard to try and come up with new innovations, new ideas, so that we can better serve our students and their families, so they can achieve their dreams here at Humboldt and beyond.
Families trust Humboldt State University. They trust us with their sons and daughters in hopes that they will have this meaningful experience. We will do everything we can to guide them, coach them, and support them along the way. An amazing place with amazing people, inspired by our students' dreams. That's Humboldt.
That's awesome.
Was that it? Are you okay?
Is there anything else that you'd like to add that you didn't mention?
Not specifically, no, not that I thought of.
Great. You're done.
HSU rocks, that's all.
The outtakes are selling for $2.99 also. There are only a few campuses that can be called by one name, and we're one of them. We're Humboldt. Thank you for your time and attention. Have a wonderful semester.